for us.
Give us a blast, Jim.
Shall I blow it? I mean, you won't go.
Company dismissed. Thank you very much.
And welcome back to another edition of the Sky Blue History Podcast with myself, Claudio, and of course Jim Brown, the Coventry City historian. Good evening, Jim. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Claudio. Good evening. Looking forward to another chat.
Yeah, we've had a week off. I thought you were on international duty or something.
I wish.
So, what have you been up to this week then?
Well, I've watched a bit of the Euros, not very much, and I skipped the England game on Sunday because I wanted to watch the final round of the US Golf. Mm-hmm. And poor old Rory. Rory McIlroy, we thought he'd done it. You know, he came from behind, took the lead, looked almost set to win, and then blew it with two dreadful putts or misses on the putting green, which ultimately cost him the title. And he's still without a major win in 10 years. Anyway, this is not a golf podcast, it's a Coventry City history podcast. But
I can see you're disappointed, though.
Yes, I do follow the golf quite a lot, and I'd like to see Rory win a major.
Now, of course, this edition of our podcast is about Coventry City's brief European tour in 1970-71 when we qualified for the old, I believe, the Fairs Cup back in those days. Intercity Fairs Cup.
No, it was called the European Fairs Cup.
Oh, the European Fairs Cup.
Yeah, they changed it. They dropped the Intercities bit.
Oh, right, okay. Now, it was my first season as a Coventry City season ticket holder at the tender age of 5. Apparently, I went to all the games. According to my dad, I remember very little of that season being 5 years old. So I'm hoping yourself and a very fantastic guest we've got coming on, which you're going to introduce, are going to fill me in all the blanks. So who have we got coming on?
Well, to talk about this unique season in Coventry City's history, the 70-71 season, where we played in Europe for the one and only time. We're also going to talk about the season before, the season we qualified by finishing 6th in the old First Division. I've got a very old friend of mine who I've known for many years. We don't see each other that often. We tend to bump into each other at away games. But he's a loyal fan. He is from Coventry, and I think we'll get him to explain a little bit about his background. But he's lived in Dubai for many years, and he comes over a few times a season to watch the Sky Blues. But his claim to fame is that he was one of the 50 Coventry City fans who went to Plovdiv in September 1970. And he also went to Munich to watch Bayern, which I also did. And he's also a very keen program collector. He's got a fantastic collection of Coventry City programs. And we do share information on that from time to time. But yes, I'd like to welcome Steve Pittam.
Good evening, Steve.
Good evening. I was expecting a round of applause then.
Oh, I've got some on the system somewhere.
Good evening, Jim. Good evening, Claudio. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, it's
Well,
great
it's a
that you.
pleasure. It's a pleasure. You know, if we're talking about the European season, we've got to have somebody who went to Plovdiv, haven't we?
Well, I guess so. I guess there's not many of us left now because we're all getting on a wee bit. It was what 55 years ago now, isn't it? Something like that.
I did make a cheeky retort where I says we've got somebody coming on. We're gonna struggle to find somebody alive. Is what I said. But it's great that you're on, and of course we both can share your experiences of starting from the season before, because I mean that in itself was a fantastic season.
Yes, from my perspective, it was quite a disastrous season the season before, because in October 1969 I left Coventry to go to university. So, and I was up at Hull, which is quite difficult to get from Hull to all these games that we were playing and winning. So I missed out on all these 10 away wins, I think it was, or 11 away. I can't remember how many. So I didn't actually see much of the 69-70 season, and I missed out on quite a bit of the excitement that was building up during the course of the season. So, but yes.
Well, the strange thing about that season was that we'd had 2 seasons of struggle where we'd had to, we had to win on the final day really to stay up both seasons, and there was no real confidence that things were going to change in the close season of '69. There was no major signings. Well, there was no signings at all, I don't think. And I think the bookies had us as usual favourites for relegation. But there was a certain I don't know. There was a very strong will in the side. I think they'd had 2 years of battling against relegation, and they thought, well, let's just carry on and just try and grind out some results. And that's the way the season started. Somewhat, they had an excellent start, but they didn't score many goals. I remember they went to Sunderland on the opening day, and there was a very, very large Coventry following, probably a couple of thousand, which was big in those days. And they ground out a 0-0 draw against a side who were absolutely dire, and who you could say at the end of that game, Sunderland are going to go down, and they did.
Yes, I went to that match. Because I knew I'd have to go to as many matches as possible before October. So I went to that one, and West Brom, the early games, I went to all of those. And it was quite exciting.
Yeah. Jim, had we signed Neil Martin by then? Had he joined the club then?
Oh, yeah, Neil Martin had been there since '68, yes. Right. But he was playing up front with Ernie Hunt, really. Of course, that West Brom game, we beat West Brom 3-1, and Willie Carr got a hat trick. That's right. Willie was playing as an emergency striker, and he got a hat trick, which it was unheard of for Coventry City to have a hat trick scorer.
Particularly Willie Carr.
Yeah. And I think West Brom had that guy Gordon Nisbet in goal, didn't they?
Oh, might well have done, yeah.
Who later was converted to a fullback.
Yeah, yes.
I don't think he didn't play many games in goal. But did you go to the baseball ground, Steve, that year?
No, because as I said, baseball, that was 4-3 that year, wasn't it?
No, 3-1.
3-1. It was in October, though, wasn't it? Because I'd already gone to Hull. So I went to Hull on the Friday, and on the Saturday we played away to Arsenal.
Yes, that's right.
And my roommate that I was allocated was an Arsenal supporter. So that was a good start of a friendship that day.
Well,
and then I think Derby was the midweek game after that, because one of my brothers went to that. Yeah, but no, I was already stuck in Hull by then.
Yes, so I think we had 2 away wins. Well, just roll back. We got 1 away win in 67-8. We got 2 away wins in 68-9, and we got 2 away wins in a week in August 69. And the away form was amazing, but they tended to be 1-0 wins. We won 1-0 at West Brom. We won 1-0 at Ipswich, 1-0 at Arsenal, and then the Derby game. Derby had just been promoted. They'd lost their unbeaten record at Hillsborough, I think the week before, but they were, I think, 25 unbeaten at home, and we absolutely murdered them. Brian Clough called us brilliant. I think Derek Hennon said it was the finest away display for 20 years or something. It was a staggering performance.
That's because I wasn't there. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. So the away form started. We did win 10 away wins, 10 away games, but the away form started early, and it was incredible.
Yeah. So the bit that I can remember, of course. Because I was in Hull, we were playing Sheffield Wednesday in November, and I was walking to the station in Hull, and the match got postponed because it was snowing. So that was the end of November, I think it was.
That's right.
So I missed that. Obviously, couldn't get to that game, but I think that was.
Is that a rare program?
Sorry.
Is that one of the rare programs that Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah, I've got that one. That's a rare program.
Have you not got it, Claudio?
I don't think I have. No, I'm not. I've definitely got the rearrange. I've got the rearrange one. I don't think I've got the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one, it had Peter Springett on the cover, and they used the same cover for the next match, because I'd go to all these program fairs and I keep finding Peter Springett, but it was for the next match. It wasn't for the one that I wanted. But,
yeah, because there's a program shop outside Hillsborough, outside the Leppings Lane, and I've dealt with him, and he said, I mentioned that program, and he says, I'm struggling to find it, and I'm in Sheffield. So it must be quite rare now. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Sheffield collectors, aren't there? Sheffield Wednesday collectors. Yeah.
So anyway, Sheffield was the first chance I'd get to go to watch Coventry up north, and it was called off.
Sorry, my phone's just gone off.
That's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit boring. Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about that season was the signing of Roy Barry. Because
come on to that. Yes.
Yeah. What a player.
It was for me. So 2 things before we go on to Roy Barry. So I came home at Christmas, and I think the Wolves match was postponed because of snow, and then the Liverpool game in the Cup was postponed because of snow. So I was getting to Coventry, and the matches kept getting postponed, so I wasn't seeing anything. So I was getting a bit frustrated by it all. And Roy Barry had been signed, and everybody was saying what a wonderful player was, and I never saw him play until we played Sheffield Wednesday at home in the March. I know I've jumped.
And he broke his leg.
Yeah. So
well, you know, that's really sad, because the impact he had in those 14 games was just amazing. I've never seen one player have so much influence on a football team as he had in those 14 games. I think we only lost 1, maybe 2. And at the time he broke his leg, I think we were up to 4th in the table.
So what was his qualities, Jim?
Well, he was first and foremost a ball-playing centre half, which you didn't see many of those days. He was really comfortable on the ball. he was a fearsome tackler, a very, very brave defender. I think in his first appearance, he came on as a sub at Stamford Bridge, and Ron Harris trod on him on his face and broke his nose. He looked a right mess, but yeah, he was a really strong defender and a great leader. You know, he was, I don't know whether he was made captain immediately, but I think he was actually, because George Curtis was sold to Villa a matter of 2 or 3 weeks after Roy arrived. And he'd been the centre half up to that point alongside Jeff Blockley.
So he was the replacement then for George?
Yeah, he was. Okay. And Maurice Setters was still there, and he was getting games, but there were some games when they lined up Setters, Curtis and Blockley was the halfback line, you know, a gruesome threesome. But the influence he had on that season, you can't understate it. The game at Everton, you know, Everton were league champions that year and were unbeatable at home. I think they only dropped 3 points at home all season, and we got a 0-0 draw there. It was a real backs to the wall performance, but Barry was the man who held it all together. He was a great influence. But they also signed, just after Barry, they signed John O'Rourke.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, to play alongside Neil Martin. And he had an influence. He scored a lot of good goals, including the hat-trick at Forest in the penultimate game. Yeah. Yeah. Were you there that night?
So after, when I got back at Easter, we got it. And you spoke earlier about 66-7 and how you couldn't wait for the next match and the next match coming up. And this was a bit like this. So I got back at Easter, before Easter, and I went to the matches. And then on the Saturday, the last Saturday of the season, I think it was, we played Stoke at home.
Yeah.
And we lost 3-0. And Gordon Banks had made, I think he made an incredible save from Neil Martin, if I remember rightly. That's about the only thing I remember about it. And I'm thinking, this is me come back and it's all going to fall apart again and we're not going to get into Europe.
Yes.
So, and then the following Wednesday, we played at Forest and won there. And then we played at Wolves and that was it. It was just, the excitement was just so much. It was just brilliant to come back after Stoke to win at Forest was brilliant. Yeah, Brian Jones.
Was the sixth place finish guaranteed a European position at the time, or was it relying on other things happening? Can you remember?
I don't.
I can remember that at one point, I don't know whether it was this season or the season before, they changed it because you could only have one team from a city. So you'd have Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. Only one of those would qualify for Europe. And I thought they might have changed the rule, but then Newcastle won the Fairs Cup, which gave us an extra place anyway. So Coventry, by finishing sixth, got into Europe anyway. I think it was certain that we were going to get in at sixth place.
Well, I'm just looking at the final league table. Newcastle finished seventh and got into Europe as well.
Yeah, because they won the Fairs Cup. Yeah. And I went to that match as well. Because by that time, the euphoria was so much. I should have been back at university, but I went to Newcastle. Because I'd missed out on everything with Roy Barry, with John O'Rourke, and with all the matches that we kept winning, and because I wasn't going to any of them. So I made up for it when I should have been back at university. So I went to Newcastle from Hull. And then I went to Edinburgh for the Hearts friendly because Willie Carr, I think he was in the Scotland squad, and I think he came on the Saturday because I went to that one as well. So,
it was just the Scottish International.
Yeah, Scotland, England at Hampden Park was on the Saturday. Hearts country was Friday, and Scotland, England was on the Saturday. So I should have been in Hull, and I was touring Scotland,
Which
did have a consequence.
Yeah, were there many City fans at Hearts?
I think there was about half a dozen of us. There was one guy that lived up there in Helensburgh, I think it was, and 4 of us sort of met or assembled together to go to Tynecastle.
Right.
Fantastic.
I think I was talking to somebody today about this St Mirren friendly idea. You know, there's a
Yes,
a Facebook group pushing to get this, and I said to somebody, if City got played at St Mirren now with their away following, the Sky Blue Army, they'd take 2,000 or 3,000 up to St Mirren, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Well, I guess so. Yes.
I'm not sure there'd be an end big enough at St Mirren now to hold the away fans.
So obviously the highlight of the culmination of that great season was at Molineux, when we pinched an early goal. Do you remember who scored it?
I keep thinking it might have been Neil Martin or it might have been Brian Joycey. I'm not.
It was
quite
Brian
sure.
Joycey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very early on, I seem to remember, because we were on the North Bank.
So was I.
So hang on, was it the North Bank? No, the South Bank is the
South Bank was the big stand where all the away fans went. I was in the North Bank.
Silly boy! But
Yeah,
you saw the Joycey goal because it was at that end, wasn't it? There were a lot of City fans there that night, Claudio.
Really?
Yeah, probably about 9,000 or 10,000.
I think I seem to recall the Evening Telegraph saying 8,000 to 10,000. Yeah.
And Wolves, actually, Wolves had a good season as well, hadn't they? They finished 11th, which wasn't bad, but I think their home form drifted off, and I think we were favourites to win anyway. And when the early goal went in, I think Noel Campbell just shut up shop, and we did our usual defensive display.
It's interesting you mentioned the defensive display because, excuse me, in the following season, I was looking at some of the programmes, and there's a letters page, and there's complaints from some of the fans saying we're a bit boring, and other fans saying what are you moaning about? We're in Europe. This is great.
Yes.
It's the happiest, from like, and there's one letter. It sounded like it could have been written today because it's saying, well, only 7 seasons ago we were, league whatever.
Yeah.
People saying
Division 4.
Division 4. Now look at us trying to get in the Premier League. And there's similar letters in the programme saying, when Jimmy Hill came, we were terrible. Less than 10 years, we're in Europe.
Yeah,
it's amazing transformation, really.
It is.
Yes.
There's a lot of similarities, aren't there?
Yeah.
Apart from the fact we haven't quite got to the Premier League.
Started from a lower position than Jim, though. We were already in the 3rd with Jim.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I was thinking about that team, and there weren't that many changes from the side that avoided relegation. But I think what you had a steely spine to the side. Bill Glazier was a rock solid goalkeeper. George and then Roy Barry were solid centre half. We had Neil Martin up front, and Gibbo, when he was fit, would run midfield. But I think the two players that really made the difference from the previous season was Willie Carr and Jeff Blockley. They were still youngsters, and I think they matured immensely that season. Became, Willie won Scottish caps, and Jeff Blockley matured into a, really good central defender that they could afford to let George and then Maurice Setters go at the end of the season.
You mentioned Blockley there, Jeff Blockley, and of course a lot of fans from Arsenal thought we got the better deal when we eventually sold him to Arsenal. But it sounds like you rated him. when he first.
Oh, I did. I did. Did you rate him, Steve?
Not particularly. I thought he was looked after by George and then by Roy Barry. I wasn't convinced about him. I still remember, which I think, again, you guys mentioned in the own goals one, the own goal he scored against Chelsea. I still remember that now because the following week we sold him to Arsenal, didn't we? I was never 100% convinced about Jeff Lockley, to be honest.
No.
But
yeah.
So how did you feel then when you realised we were going to Europe? Then at the end of the season, that must be weird.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was. As I said, I just went on a crusade because I'd missed all the other games, so I was determined to enjoy the fact that we got into Europe and we went to Newcastle and then did all the other games. So, and I made sure I saved my grant because I was definitely going to go to wherever we were drawn in the first round. So it was, for me, I was going, and that was the end of it. So yeah.
And for those who are either watching or listening, so how old would you both have been at the time?
So I was 19 when I went to Bulgaria. Just.
Yeah, I would have been. I didn't go to Bulgaria, obviously, but I was 18. I was 18 in the summer of 1970. But we had we used to go on the Priory coach home and away from Leamington, and during that summer of 1970, as a group of half a dozen of us would meet up every Thursday night in a pub in Regent Street, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's do you know where the Royal Bank of Scotland was on Regent Street?
Yes.
Yeah, just round the corner from the parade.
Yeah.
Well, there was a pub there.
Golden Lion?
Pardon?
Golden Lion?
It might be the Golden Lion. It's not there now, is it?
No, but near where the Jewellers was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we used to meet up every Thursday night through the summer, talk about, anything, looking forward to Europe and looking forward to, the new season. It was an exciting summer.
And of course, 70-71 was my first season, like I mentioned, and where my dad, my mum used to moan at my dad saying, "You never take us anywhere at weekends, it's always football." And he said, "Okay, then let's have a little trip." So he took me and my sister and my mum up to Blackpool for supposedly a weekend away. And here we go. Here they are.
Yeah.
Now, for some reason, I've got, maybe you guys might know, it's the same game with two different covers. I mean,
that's right.
And I didn't, and for years, I thought one was for the season after, and then I realised, oh no, it's the same season. But I was looking at the, of course, Blackpool's lineup, and you got John Craven and Tommy Hutch in there, which is brilliant. But I was looking at
scored against us in that match as well.
Sorry,
Tommy Hutch scored against us in that match, that friendly.
And he probably did, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I was looking at our lineup. So is this? I mean, it's obviously this is what they thought would be playing: Glazier, Coop, Brook, Machin, Blockley, Clements, Hunt, Carr, Martin, Joyce, and O'Rourke. So I presume Roy Barry had still got the broken leg.
Yeah, he didn't come back to first team football until towards the end of the season. He was out for over a year. It was a bad break.
Oh, well, so that was a massive loss then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That is a shame.
And they did sign Jeff Strong from Liverpool,
right,
as a sort of, I guess, almost a temporary replacement. Jeff was getting on a bit anyway, but he did add a bit of experience to the side. I was never that impressed with him, but he added a bit of experience to the team. So that was the friendly you were talking about, the two programs. Yeah. Well, I went to the friendly. I remember driving up in my little Austin A40 with a chap called Dave Freeman from Leamington, and we stayed behind after the game and went to the Pleasure Beach. There was a massive disco going on there, and had a few beers, and we slept in my Austin A40 at Lytham St Anne's Beach that night. So,
I think we would have gone up in my dad's Ford Zephyr V6 with the bench seats front and back, and it had leopard seat upholstery, and it was sky blue. He always bought a sky blue car. Always did.
Man. Good man.
Yeah, always did. So talk us through then.
I can't remember how I got there, but I got there as well. So yeah.
So really, it's not a new phenomenon. These City fans going to pre-season friendlies. I think it's always happened.
Yeah. Well, that season we played at Shrewsbury, we played at Blackpool, we played somewhere else as well. Where
Charlton, was it?
Charlton, yeah, that's right, Charlton, yeah. So I went to all of those. Yeah. Brilliant. Like I say, it was still the euphoria from getting into the Europe was still there, driving me forward.
Well, if it happened now, it'd be crazy. It'd be absolutely madness. Yeah, we were taking over the whole ground for a pre-season friendly, I reckon.
Yeah,
if it happened. Yeah. So talk us through this season in 70-71.
Well, I just remember the disappointment at Blackpool, thinking, oh well, I'll be all right next Saturday when we go to Forest, and we played Forest in the penultimate game of the previous season and hammered them, and they were a poor team. We went to Forest thinking, oh well, we're the away form team, and we got absolutely murdered. It was only 2-0, but it was all over by half time. They had Barry Lyons. Do you remember Barry Lyons?
Yeah.
On the right wing. He I don't know who he was up against. Maybe Catlin. And he murdered him. Do you remember that game, Steve?
Yeah, I remember the game. Again, it was it the following season when they had the fire and we had to play Notts County? Was it that season? No.
That was 68-9.
Right. Anyway, yeah, I went to the match and 2-0, and we didn't look very good.
No, and Jeff Strong made his debut and looked hopeless. But I don't remember when the draw was made for the first round of the Fairs Cup. It must have been quite. It was quite early in the season.
I think it was before the season actually started. Because
was it?
I remember I booked it straight away. It was £38 I had to pay for one night, and and I was still in Coventry, and I'm sure we hadn't started the season we may have just been the first home match when I booked it.
£38.
Yeah,
mind you, that was a lot of money in those days.
Well, that was the term's grant. One term gone before I even started that term.
Yeah, well, I couldn't afford to go, and I did say to my mum, I really want to go. And you know what she said afterwards when she heard that Rod had been? She said, "Well, if you'd asked me a bit more firmly, I'd have paid for you to go." I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I've got the first home programme here against Southampton.
Yeah.
And the draw's in here. I've got it here.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in Group 6 we were in. Of course, Trachea Plodith v Coventry City. We could have ended up playing University Craiova in Romania or Upesdoza in Hungary. It could have been a boring trip to Coleraine or Kilmarnock. At least we avoided that.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? That would have been the draw, Kilmarnock. And we could have played them in the Texaco Cup, couldn't we?
Yes.
That would have been the draw. But Katowice or Barcelona was in the group as well. There must have been obviously group matches, and then you went into another group. Yeah. And of course, that's it's interesting. Liverpool were in the draw. Leeds were in the draw. Fiorentina, Hamburg,
Derby,
Newcastle, Glasgow Rangers. There's some Arsenal were in there as well. Juventus. So some big guns, Lazio as well. Some interesting teams in there. And of course, the mighty Sky Blues, we were in there as well.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich and Sparta Rotterdam. I remember both of those in there.
Yeah, and Sparta Prague's in here, Dynamo Dresden, Partizan Belgrade, Inter Milan.
Now that reminds me, you saying Arsenal were in it. Arsenal were in it by virtue of winning the previous year's competition, and that meant that another English team could go in. That's how Newcastle got in, I'm sure.
Ah, right. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I've got the small print here. I'll read them. I'm just about to see it in my glasses. It says, Tracking of Plodded v Sky Blues was the first match drawn out of Group 6 when the draw was made for the European Fairs Cup competition, which was made in Luxembourg on the 5th of August. It should prove an intriguing tie for us in our first European adventure. There you go. Plovdiv is situated 100 kilometers southeast of Sofia in Bulgaria. The town itself, a population of 300,000, and supports 3 clubs, Spartak and Lokomotiv. And it's and that's what it says. God, that is an early draw, isn't it?
It is.
So how did you go? Well, how did you get there, Steve? For a start, did you have to get special permission, visas? I mean, it was the Eastern Bloc.
Well, we just paid £38 to the agents in Coventry. I can't remember who it was now, but they were down by the Belgrade somewhere, and they organised everything. So it was a coach from Poole Meadow down to Luton Airport, and then the flight, then a hotel, and tickets for the match. It was the whole lot. So it was all pretty straightforward, quite honestly. There's nothing difficult about it. But yeah, as I say, it's all a little bit hazy now. It was just getting there was just the key to it all, and it was quite an adventure. There
were 50 of you, right?
Yeah, that's what they kept saying, 50, and there were. We'll come on to the Chelsea element in a minute, but yeah, because the plane was full, and the rest of it were Chelsea fans going to Salonika. So, but yeah, so I spent. I think the match we flew on the Tuesday. I can't remember which day the match was. It might have been Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a Wednesday. The game was on the Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay. So on the Tuesday, I got my Union Jack, and I painted on Coventry City FC, and ready to get to Poole Meadow. I'm thinking, I've got to get to Poole Meadow early, got to be on the picture with my flag. And there I was with the flag holding one end, and Bill Wilson came and stood next to me, who was the MP, and he grabbed the flag and pulled it like that. And all you could see on the picture is me with just my head, no body or anything. It was like a ghostly impression of me with my flag and Bill Wilson. But anyway, so yeah, that bit I remember very clearly. and of course, getting on the plane, it wasn't until we got on the plane we realised that it was shared with Chelsea supporters going to Salonika, which was fine. Especially as we were playing Chelsea the following Saturday.
That's right, yes. And yeah, I can tell you a story about that actually, because my great friend Rod Dean, he was one of the 50 as well.
Yeah.
And he told me that that on the way back from Plovdiv, from Sofia on the plane, when you got on the plane at Sofia, the Chelsea fans were there. They'd been to Aris Salonika, hadn't they? Yeah. And he bought a bundle of programs in Plovdiv.
Yeah.
And he's swapping the Plovdiv program with the Aris Salonika one.
Yeah.
And when he came back to the UK and we met up, he gave me the Plovdiv program and a copy of the Aris Salonika one.
Yeah.
And it had no English in it at all. It was all in Cyrillic, Greek writing.
Yeah.
And anyway, about 20 years ago, I decided to sell this program on eBay, and a Chelsea fan paid maybe over £300 for it on eBay.
Fantastic.
I sold mine as well, but I didn't get that much money.
Didn't you?
I sold it a week before then, so yeah. I sold it when I was a hard-up student, so yeah.
Well, there are some great pictures of the fans in Plovdiv, aren't there?
Yeah. Yes. Again, as I was explaining earlier to Claudio, we were in the stadium, and when we scored the fourth goal, one or two of the guys stood up, Mick Salmon and one or two of the others, and I decided I wasn't going to stand up because there was this row of police with machine guns facing us, and I'm thinking, I'll just sit this one out and just be happy that we scored. But the other guys were just cheering away. So,
well,
pictures didn't show that, of course.
I'm friends with somebody from Plovdiv who's actually on Facebook, and he put some photographs up. I need to get in touch with him again, actually, and see if there's any other photographs from that era. I've seen one where both teams are on the pitch. Is that right? There's one where they got the whole two teams. There's a whole there's a photograph,
flowers and things.
Yeah, and so the one on the steps, that was on the hotel steps, was it? There's a photograph. There's a photograph of City fans on it's either the hotel steps or town hall steps. I've seen that one.
I haven't seen that one, but it would be the hotel steps. The hotel, it was quite a prominent hotel overlooking the square, because in the morning, the following morning, I walked around the square while they were still cleaning it, and the hotel was pretty impressive. I've looked on the map recently, but I can't find where it is. So maybe
I'll have to ask that guy.
Yeah.
I should have asked him before this, shouldn't I? Really, but
is it Nicky?
And I'd like to see the pictures because I don't remember seeing those pictures.
And,
is it Nicky, Claudio?
I can't think of his name now, but he's the photograph where somebody's holding a flag up. And it's on the steps of a building. So
right, because there is a guy called Nicky who we had the former Players Association organised a reunion of the team, well, the players who played for Coventry. When would it have been? September 2000. Oh, would it have been 40th anniversary? What would that be? 2010. Yeah, I think it was the 40th anniversary. And Dinko Demendiev, one of the Plovdiv players, came over.
Oh,
and there was a guy called Nicky from Plovdiv. He came as his minder. And he gave us some wonderful gifts, a Plovdiv shirt and various bits of memorabilia, which are in the club archives now.
I don't think they don't exist now, do they? Tracking Plovdiv, I don't think. I'm sure that's what he's saying. This guy.
No, they've changed their name. They're now Botev Plovdiv, which is what they were before. One of my son's friends over here comes from Plovdiv, and he supports Botev. And he tells me that it's one and the same team.
Yeah, well, this guy supports them as well, you see. So I'll get in contact with him again, because it'd be, and we'll just get the photographs on one of the other shows. We'll show them up.
Yeah, I'd like to see those.
So the other story that Rod told me was at the banquet after the match, where 50 fans were invited in with the players.
Yeah, we were all in the banqueting area eating the whatever it was, fish or whatever, I can't remember now. But yes, we were all there together, and then the players went running around looking for where the party was after that. So yeah.
And was there a party?
Well, I don't know. I'd passed out by then.
Was there a banquet?
I made an excuse and left, shall we say? Yeah.
Was there a banquet menu? Because there's guys who collect these banquet menus from post-match meals and that.
Right.
I sold one to somebody who he collects the England ones, and I've got one from England v Russia, Soviet Union in 1965, I think it was, and it's totally signed by the England team. And and I thought I'd sell it on. It's a bit like you, Jim. Sometimes you have to sell things. It's not.
You do,
It's sitting there. If it's not Coventry City related, I'm thinking, get rid now.
Yeah.
So
no, I don't remember. Well, like I said, it's all pretty hazy, quite honestly. So.
Yeah.
And if you move on to the home match, I didn't go to it.
Right.
Because of all the excesses of travelling to Edinburgh and Glasgow and whatever in the summer, I failed one of my exams, and the exam was on the same day, and it didn't finish till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which meant I couldn't get to the home game against Turkey. So I've done the away match, but not the home match. So.
Oh, that's bad luck. By the time the home match, by the time the second leg, the home match came round, I just looked up, and we were 17th in the table. We had an awful start, and I think that probably affected the crowd because there was only just over 20,000 there. You know, for the Coventry's first home game in Europe.
Yeah.
Really disappointing. But in those days, of course, you didn't have the vast number of season ticket holders, and you know, a game, and even if even the season ticket holders would have had to pay for their ticket. So, and I think we've had a League Cup game the week before, and maybe just people were just, oh no, we're through. We've won 4-1 in the first leg, and. You know, it's not going to be worth watching. But we scored 2 goals in the first half, Brian Joycey and Jeff Blockley. I've got a feeling they were both headers. I know Blockley's was. But yeah, so we went through 6-1 on aggregate.
The game before, Jim, the League Cup, was that the Tranmere or the West Ham?
Tranmere.
Is that where we went out?
No. I think we beat Tranmere. We drew up there.
Right.
We won the replay at Highfield Road.
That's right. Because I went to Tranmere, and I think I went to the home match. I think I did. I can't. Yeah. Yes, I must have done before it was before the term started. So yeah.
So then we get drawn against the mighty Bayern.
Yeah, and just before we go into Bayern, a couple of things on that, because before the draw was there, and I'm at Hull, and I'm thinking, what we really want is Sparta Rotterdam. And I was looking at ferries across to Rotterdam from Hull, and I was thinking, if we get Sparta Rotterdam, that'll be brilliant for me. But of course, we got Bayern, and I think we underestimated them, or maybe the British press underestimated them a little bit. I know.
Well, German football was different to how it is maybe 10 years later, because there was a lot of amateur leagues, and Bayern Munich weren't particularly a large club at the time.
That's right.
You know, in the mid 60s, I think they were an amateur club. It was like they were like almost a new club, but of course, full of some very, very talented footballers.
Yeah, and everybody kept talking about how lucky Germany were to beat England in the World Cup in 1970 because of Bonetti, and that German team was quite a few Bayern Munich players, but we'd always said, "Wow, England should have beaten them anyway." And I just got the feeling that everybody underestimated how good Bayern Munich really were and the quality of that team, quite frankly.
Well, again, looking at the sort of run up to the game, the league form had improved a little bit. You know, we'd had the donkey kick game for a start. We'd beaten Everton 3-1. And we'd what else had we done? Oh, we'd beaten Derby in the League Cup.
I didn't go to the donkey kick game. I was already at Hull because I had to take the exam, so I was still in Hull. So I didn't come down for that. I went to Hull v Norwich, and the commentator on the Coventry match said, "You have to watch Match of the Day tonight. An amazing goal," he kept saying. And I'm thinking, why am I watching Hull v Norwich?
So education ruined your life, Steve.
Well, it did. It was quite it was all that up and down thing. So yeah, too much.
But you're talking about Bayern. They had the big three, didn't they? Beckenbauer, Muller, and Sepp Maier, the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But they also had some players who would go on to be household names as well. I like Uli Hoeneß. We had Schwarzenbeck, who was a German centre half.
Yeah. And there was a midfielder. I can't remember his name. There was a midfielder that was
Roth.
Franz Roth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Franz Roth. Yeah. But of course, the story is Eric McManus, isn't it?
Yeah. Poor old Eric. Yes.
Just for our listeners, Bill Glazier got an injury the week before and was ruled out of the game. And our reserve goalkeeper, he had played for the first time. I think he played in that game at Newcastle the previous season.
Yeah, at the end of the last match, 4-0. Yeah.
Maybe a couple of other games, but he was a real rookie goalkeeper, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he came in, and the pitch was just like a paddy field.
Yeah.
The ball was fizzing off the surface, and Bayern they played to the conditions, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes, it was astonishing. The first 10 minutes, 2 or 3-1 after 10 minutes, was it? Or something like that.
It was, yeah, it was. Ernie Hunt actually equalised after. Schneider scored after 4 minutes. Hunt equalised after 10. Schneider scored again in 12, and Schwarzenbeck made it 3-1 in 15, and Muller made it 4-1 in 19.
Yeah.
So basically, Ernie Hunt scoring got them angry. Looks of things.
But I think I can't. There's no video of the game, but my recollection is they were just fizzing shots in at Eric, and he just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Did you go you went on the organised trip? Did you?
Yeah, I went on So I came down for the Nottingham Forest game, and I stayed over to go on just the day trip. I didn't do 2 days, but it still meant I missed a week of university again. So, right. So after that, I didn't come for the home match because I really did have to stay and do some work at university. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived the second year. So
you should have gone to Birmingham, Steve.
Well, I always wanted to go further away, which was a mistake, obviously. Yeah. So
I went on the 2-day trip.
Yeah.
And I found the travel documents a couple of years ago, and it was £25 all in.
Yeah.
Like yourself with Bulgaria, it was a coach to Luton, the airfare, and it was all Coventry fans on that plane.
Yes.
I've got a feeling there were 4 or 5 plane loads went.
It was quite a lot went. I can't remember how many. Yeah. I think there was two plane loads went on the 1 day and 2 or 3 on the 2 day. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if it happened now, pardon?
It was £19 for me with the 1 day.
Oh, okay. Well, if it happened today, I think we'd have hordes of Coventry fans driving there, wouldn't we? You know, it would be quite an easy drive to get to Munich from, the Channel ports, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but the biggest challenge now, of course, is passport control. You can get there any way you want, but Schengen and all the rest of it makes it much more difficult to travel in and around Europe now, doesn't it? I don't know. But, yeah.
Your £25 would be about £330 now.
Would it? Yeah.
So Steve, you're a naughty boy, Steve. You spend all that university grant there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had to. I didn't realise we were never going to get another chance.
Well, yeah.
But do you have seats, or were you on the terracing?
No, I was on the terrace. Yeah.
Right. Well, Rod and I were in the stand. That must have been the perk of the 2-day trip.
Yeah.
And we were before the game. We were in the bar underneath the the stand
Yeah.
with hundreds of Coventry fans singing and chanting.
I was there.
You were there. And who else was there but
Bill
Bill
Glazier was there, drinking with
the
us.
injured Glazier, and Roy Barry with his leg in plaster, getting well oiled on the German beer. And then when we went up to the stand before the match to take our seats, who's behind us but Glazier and Barry? Well, Bill's language when Eric was letting in the goals was just choice, absolute choice. He was just beside himself, as we all were. But I've got fond memories of that bar. It was a rickety old ground, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. I was quite surprised the quality of it. So, but yes,
because Bayern, you were saying, Claudio, Bayern weren't a big club. The TSV in Munich was a bigger club.
Yeah. And TSV, they had the chance to sign Beckenbauer, and they turned him down. So Beckenbauer went to Bayern.
Yeah.
And TSV are now in the third tier in Bundesliga 3. So yeah.
Well, I didn't underestimate Beckenbauer. I just remember him in '66 in the World Cup for Germany. He was just elegant.
Yes.
And if he hadn't had to mark Bobby Charlton in the final, they'd have beaten us, I'm sure.
Mm.
He was a world-class player back then, and he was only I don't know how old he was. He'd have been 18 or 19 then.
Yes, he certainly was.
Yeah.
It'd been interesting what sort of a game that would have been, actually, Jim, because from what I gather, they were told to mark each other, weren't they? Charlton and Beckenbauer. They just follow each other around the pitch all game.
That's right.
It seems ludicrous, isn't it? Two of the most creative players, which is they may as well sat on the bench.
Yeah.
But we have to remember, within 3 or 4 years, Bayern Munich win the European Cup and then win it 3 times in a row.
Yep.
So they're massively on the up as a club, and of course have never looked back. So I think we should take credit for that. We set them on their way.
Yes.
The highlight for me was Tottenham losing to them 7-1, not a couple of seasons ago.
Oh, they took our record.
They took our record, so I was rather pleased about that. Especially my friends who support Tottenham, I had to tell them all about that.
Yeah. I think Watford went close, didn't they?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, on reflection, though, the season itself, that season, was kind of pretty much what it was like when we entered the league itself in the first division, because it's almost like we had a freak season, didn't we? Getting into Europe. But like you said, the 2 seasons previously, we were struggling. And it's almost like we've gone back into the struggle mode. Is that what it was like?
Yeah, I think we had a good home record that year, but we just couldn't get the away wins that we'd had the previous year. But yeah, we had a good home record, but then it was spoilt by losing to Rochdale in the FA Cup, which was major.
I went to that as well.
Is that the game where we got it called off and they made us play it?
Yeah.
There's a story behind this, isn't there? And then
there is. Yeah.
So I went on the Saturday in January, and it was postponed as we got there. So we ended up going to Manchester United, I think it was. My brother went to Blackpool, the West Ham, where there was a lot of hoo-ha about West Ham and drinking in the nightclub. I was at Manchester United. And then the match was played on the Monday in the afternoon because it was deemed that the floodlights weren't good enough. And of course, I had to be back at university on the Monday. So I went on the coach to Rochdale with my suitcase, put my suitcase, left it in the coach, and then got dropped at the station and went on to Hull from Rochdale. So I was a day late. Not bad.
Yeah, I went to the first game and ended up at Old Trafford like you. I think we played Middlesbrough in the cup.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to the. I was too busy working to go to the Monday afternoon game. But yeah, I think Cantwell upset them by moaning about their floodlights.
That's it.
And having it played in the afternoon rather than at night. And we paid the price, I think.
Yes. Was it David Cross that scored for them?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That,
so
you mentioned,
that was our season over in January.
Yeah.
We were mid-table with little hope of getting into Europe again, and pretty safe from relegation, and out of all the cup competitions. So it was a pretty lackluster second half of the season.
Steve mentioned the West Ham Blackpool match where they all went on the razzle, didn't they? Because they thought it was going to be called off. And they reckon the instigator was Bobby Moore, and that pretty much was the beginning of the end of his career at West Ham, wasn't it? He was left out then. It was
I think he fell out with Ron Greenwood big time.
Yeah, it was massive falling out, wasn't it? Because they'd all been on the lash, and then they played and got beat 4-1, 4-0.
I don't think I've read stories about that, and I don't think they were on the razzle. I think they were just late but getting back.
Oh, right.
I think they were sensible enough not to get, because the game hadn't been called off. But I think I've read it was exaggerated by the media. But yeah, Jimmy Greaves left. He was one of them. Jimmy Greaves left West Ham quite soon afterwards.
So yeah, so quite a big bust up then.
Yeah,
Just Jim was saying about that was the end of the season, and for me it was quite a relief because that meant I could just actually do some work.
Did you actually pass? That's
well, that was the second year, and third year I did cut down quite a lot on the football because I decided I really did need to make the effort to pass. So, and then I took your advice, Claudio. So I then went on to Birmingham University to do a second degree.
Right.
There you go.
Sensible stuff. Well, that spring, I left Leamington. I left home and moved to London, March '71. So I was a long distance fan as well. But I do remember not long after moving to London, we played Huddersfield away at the end of March. They were. I think they didn't get relegated that season. They were having quite a reasonable season, but they were still a poor team.
Yeah.
And I hitchhiked from London to Huddersfield on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And it wasn't worth going. We were awful.
It was 0-0, and I hitchhiked from Coventry to Huddersfield.
Yeah.
And I got a lift with an MP who had radio 4 on, and wouldn't talk to us. He just gave me a lift all the way to Huddersfield, but just the politics. It's fine.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the away followings fell away quite badly that season.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't really say because I didn't go to that many, but there weren't very many at Huddersfield.
No.
It wasn't Harold Wilson you went with, was it? Did he support? Did he support?
He was a Huddersfield fan. Yeah.
That would have been funny. He didn't recognise who it was. It could have been Harold Wilson.
Yeah. So and actually, when you look back at that season, it's supposed to be Noel Cantwell's glorious European campaign, but in actual fact, it's probably the Rochdale game which was the beginning of the end for him.
Yes.
And the football, I think, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but I think that was our lowest goal-scoring season for a long, long time. I think we only got 38 goals in 42 games, if I remember rightly. I'll just check that. It was miserable. We got 37 goals.
Yeah.
12 home wins, though. Good home record.
Which saved us, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and we only conceded 38 goals.
Yeah, yeah. Good for the 0-0s on the pools.
Yeah.
So, what were the average attendances then, Jim, for that season?
That would have been about 25,000.
So is that the average we've beaten now? Then is that the record?
Yeah, I think it's maybe it was 26. Maybe it was the best season since then.
Right.
Last season. Yeah. I think we had 40,000 against Leeds on a Friday night in February.
Right.
And they, as usual, won 1-0. But that was the biggest home crowd. We did play Man United near the end of the season. I think it was an Easter game, and we got a big crowd. Let me look. Only 34,000 for Man United, which was a big drop off from the previous seasons. We'd had 40,000 gates for the first three seasons.
They were struggling as well, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah.
They were.
So you think this is all because of we got to the Europe, but then there's the whole disappointment of the Rochdale game and the season being a bit flat. Although we were in Europe, I get the impression the football was okay, but not good enough to keep people on coming to the ground.
No, there were very few highlights. The win at Derby stands out. The donkey kick game, obviously.
Yeah.
Beating Bayern in the return, we haven't talked about that. We beat them 2-1, and for a few minutes we thought we could maybe pull the 4-5 goal deficit back.
Was Glazier back in goal for that one?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So again, I didn't go to that one either. So 2 away games, no home games.
But that was interesting. Before when the draw was made, the club made that second leg all ticket.
Yes,
which is very unusual for Coventry. With very few all ticket games in those days. 50,000 capacity. They were prepared for 50,000 for that second leg, and because of the result.
Yeah, which leads me to the point I made earlier that I think there was a slight underestimation of what the German teams were like Bayern Munich, simply because of the Bonetti incidents earlier, and that was we'll probably lose over there by a goal, but we'll beat them at home. So there was an attitude about it, I think.
Well, because I think if you look at it, the Latin clubs, because European competition only started in I know it was mid-50s, but majority of the trophies were won by the Latin clubs and British clubs.
Yeah.
So they were quite dominant, and so you could probably understand the attitude, but like you say, probably the wrong attitude, really.
Yeah, and the biggest disappointment was that Bayern Munich in the next round got Sparta Rotterdam.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
And then they went out to Liverpool, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Ultimately, who I think they won the trophy. I think.
Did they? I thought it was Newcastle, but I could be wrong.
No, that was 69.
Oh, yeah, it was that?
It's not. Yeah.
Keep losing track of those.
Well, that's a great trip down memory lane, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I say, October 69 to October 70 was just an extreme roller coaster for me.
Yeah.
But yes, it was.
I think you could write the book, Education Ruined My Life. Yeah.
I could if I could write sentences.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
That's good.
And, it's great to see you. I do remember we bumped into each other at Cheltenham, didn't we, a few years ago?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
That 6-1 game at Cheltenham.
The 6-1, and I think I've seen you once or twice since then. But that was at the pub as well. So right. Well, it's midnight here, so
of course, you're in Dubai, aren't you?
Again. And good luck with the move. If you're coming back to the UK, good luck with that. And
I'll be back. I'll be back. Well, we've screwed that up as well. I'm coming back on the 2nd of August because I thought the start of the football season was the 3rd of August.
Right.
And then when we got to the semi-final of the cup, and I was thinking, well, the Charity Shield will be on the 3rd of August, so I'll come back for that anyway.
Yeah.
When we win the cup.
Cool.
Oh, that reminds me. I must tell you a little short story. I met John Taylor today, the new Chief Operating Officer at Coventry City, and he told me about what happened in the run-up to the semi-final this year. And because we were on the verge of getting into Europe, we were advised by the FA to go through the process of preparing UEFA for us. And it's quite a complicated process. We had loads of forms to fill in. We had to satisfy UEFA about the people who were the leaders in the club, you know, the manager and the backroom people. And it was quite a difficult process, he said. But at the end of the day, they actually satisfied UEFA that we were ready for European football.
Next season. Season after, rather. Yeah.
Well, if you want to talk to us about any particular part of the Sky Blue history, please email Jim at claryborton@gmail.com. And we've had quite a few emails, haven't we, Jim? Been really pleased, actually.
We have. We've got a big, long list of subjects we want to cover. And we've also got a few more guests, haven't we, Claudio? We're going to join us.
Yeah, we're going to, definitely. We're going to have some local radio presenters, some old players, and it'll be good fun. That's what it's all about. And trying to remember the memories. Yes.
And tell all your friends about the podcast. Get them to watch it or listen to it. And if you like it, give us a good review on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're watching or listening to it.
Brilliant, Steve. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Much appreciated. Loved every minute of it.
Great talking to you again, Jim.
Okay.
And I might go and catch a bit of Ronaldo now, playing for Portugal.
Oh, okay. All right.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you. Bye.
Radio company dismissed. Thank you very much.